Hello, everyone. So today I'm doing Facebook Live with Dennis, a co-founder of Seven Generation Games. So I'm going to be asking him a few questions. So thanks for watching. So my first question for you is tell us about your role here and like what you do at Seven Generation Games.
Well, when we founded the company, it was just Anne Maria, my wife, and myself, and it was her idea to do these educational games. She had gotten a grant to produce a game, but at first we didn't know what platforms it was going to run on or how it was going to be implemented. So all that was kind of up in the air. And I went into this right after retiring from a job I'd had for like over 20 years with Raytheon. So the first thing I had to do is research what was available, and Anne Marie had pretty ambitious goals in mind because she showed me some things on the web that were kind of 3D world type of things and said, well, could we do something like this? So I did some research. I researched things like JavaScript game engines for running on the web. And so eventually I wound up looking at Unity pretty closely because it seemed like it was a more full-featured way of producing games than any of the other things that were available at the time. So that's what we ended up using. So I guess my initial role was basically to figure all this out, figure out what kind of tools we were going to be using, and then for our first games, it was basically Anne Marie and myself. We had found a plugin that allowed you to use HTML within a game, so we did a sort of a hybrid HTML Unity game where a lot of the educational material was done in HTML, and then we would drop into these Unity mini games to give the kids something a little bit fun to keep them going while they were absorbing the educational content. And so my role in the company has mainly been as one of the software developers. I mean, at first it was just me and her, then we brought a few people over, and so I kind of oversee that whole programming side of things and helping out our other developers who might need some help with using the tools or with specific problems. So that's what I do.
Yeah, so you studied physics in college at UCLA, and you also got your master's, right? Also at UCLA.
I have a bachelor's in physics and mathematics and a master's in physics from UCLA, both from UCLA.
So what got you interested in tech?
I don't know. I mean, I wanted to study physics from when I was in grade school, so it was a long time ago. I don't know. I was a kid back in the 60s, and there was this big thing. There was this big scare because Russia had launched Sputnik, and there was a big scare about the United States falling ahead in education, especially science education. So for a kid in the 60s, there was a lot of material out there that was aimed at us. There was a lot of sort of popular science books and stuff in the libraries. I mean, they were trying to suck kids into learning this. So I probably got exposed to a lot of that. I'm guessing that's why I got interested. And then in college, even though I guess my original idea was to go into physics research, I mean, that was around the period that computers were becoming a lot more available and microcomputers were being invented around the time that I entered college. And I got really interested in that. And we had, as a grad student, I was able to play around with, we had a couple of mini computers in the lab that our professor ran. So I got really interested in that. So when I left graduate school, I really ended up getting my first job with something that was mainly involving software development, because that was just kind of what it was in the air at the time. A lot of people were getting into it.
Right. And you were also studying math too, so that kind of overlapped as well. Yeah, so I guess another question that I have is, compared to other companies that make educational video games for kids, like what do you think makes Seven Generation Games like stand out or unique?
I don't know. Whenever we try these things out, the kids really say they enjoy playing them, and I don't think we've encountered a situation where the kids weren't really enthusiastic about playing the game. So I think that's our biggest selling point. I mean, also, there's some solid material in there. we've got tests that show that after kids have played this game, their math proficiency, for example, is demonstrably increases.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I mean, that plus the fact that it's not hard to get the kids to play it because they actually think these games are pretty fun. The kids in the age range that we're aiming at.
Yeah, definitely. And 5 years from now, like, where do you see, or where would you like to see 7th Generation Games?
Well, I mean, we've got some products that are pretty polished now, but so far our sales haven't reached the point that we would like them to be. So I would hope that we'd be like a lot more established with on the sales end, and I'd like to see us diversify into. Right now, we're kind of producing a bunch of games that are all in the same mold. They're sort of math games with cultural content also, and sometimes the cultural content is a little precisely focused on one particular. Like we started out with doing games that had a lot of Native American history and culture in them because those were the grants we originally received, was to produce games in that mold, and now we're doing games that are focused on Latin American history. So I kind of would like to get to diversify a little more because I feel like sometimes focusing so narrowly on one particular type of culture or one particular type of history is something that might give us a problem in getting more sales. So I'd like 5 years from now, I'd like to see us do a lot more games that either are targeted to a lot of different kinds of history, or perhaps are a little bit more generic and or are more math focused. I mean, that's my particular vision. That isn't necessarily Anne Maria's or the other people in the company, but I think we can probably do both. I mean, I think we can like have the focused apps and also have some that are a little bit more broadly based.
Right. Yeah. And do you have any advice for someone who say they want to start like their own like startup, but like they're not sure if they can do it, or like, yeah, do you have like any advice?
I mean, I haven't really been involved in the business side that much, but I can say as far as the technical side goes, it's never been less expensive to get started because, like for instance, in the game area, you have these game engines that are now focused on indie development, so they're basically free to use if you're starting out and you don't really have any income. So if you got a computer, that's the only. If you have the computer and the know-how, you can get started.
Yeah.
And they even have some things set up for people who aren't really that proficient in software development. I mean, they have systems that would allow you to start making games even if you weren't a programmer. Personally, I think being a programmer is a big plus. So
Yeah.
I think you've got an advantage if you're comfortable with software development. But I would say, yeah, if you're interested, get a hold of one of these tools and see what you can produce. Other than that, like I said, I haven't been involved in the business side of things, so I'm not sure at the point where you've got a product that you think is sellable. I'm not sure how you would go from there. But I would say the first step is see if this is. I mean, it's very cheap to find out if this is something you think you can do. To find out if you're really going to be able to create a project that will be.
Yeah,
be
no, that's
viable.
definitely, yeah, no, that's a good point. And okay, so now I just have a couple more questions, but okay, do you have a favorite game?
Out of our games?
Out of our games, 7th Generation games.
I don't know. I mean, some of the early games I think were very ambitious, and I'd like to go back and kind of clean those up. And so, I think the one that's got the best material that I personally was involved in is probably Forgotten Trail.
Okay.
Because that has mini games that are done in Unity, and they were done after I had several years of experience
Right.
doing these games. So I think they work a little better. They're a little bit more focused. I think they're more fun to play. So I guess that would be the game, and I think that's a game that really I mean, even though we have it out there, I mean, there are still some things we could do to put some sort of finishing touches on it. But yeah, I'd say right now, as far as the parts that I contributed, I think that would be the best one.
Yeah, I think that's Anne Maria's favorite game too. Yeah, I think she wrote a blog post on that. Yeah, okay. So then my last question for you is just to tell us a fun fact about yourself. If you can think of one. Fun facts are hard to think of.
Well, something that people might not know that we're just knew about us from this company is I did write a program, a commercial program before this that I sold personally, and it is for generating fractal images on the Macintosh. So
Wow.
if anybody's interested in that, there's a website. It's called Fractal Domains. At some point, I have to update the app because I haven't touched it for years. I actually tried to do an upgrade because it actually predates OS 10. It ran on OS 9, and then I updated it to use Carbon so that it could run on OS 10. But I think in the next version of OS 10, they're probably going to finally stop Carbon support. So at some point, I have to. I've already translated it over to Objective-C, but it's not finished. And then Swift came along, so I may end up I actually translate part of the Objective-C to Swift, so it may end up just being a Swift app. But I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to do that because my time is all tied up with 7th Generation game stuff. But if anybody'd be interested in see what we used to do with that, I have a gallery of images there, so that's one thing. And there's also my stepdaughter Rhonda was quite interested in fractals back when I think sort of in her tween years. I think it was even before she was in high school. She used to do a lot of fractal images using my program, and I have a gallery. So cool. Yeah, and I have a gallery on there called Rhonda's Gallery that has a bunch of stuff she did, and I forget exactly how old she was. Probably like 12 or 13 when she did a lot of that stuff. So if anybody's interested, if you're not interested in the program, you might be interested in the gallery. I haven't added anything new to it for years, but it is out there. So just do a search on Fractal Domains and maybe add Mac or OS 10, and it'll pop right up at the top.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you for sitting down and telling us a little bit about yourself. And guys, thank you for watching. Have a good Thursday afternoon.